Good afternoon, everybody. It's your girl Tanya, and thank you for tuning in to Books and Brown Liquor. Today is my book review video of Kindred by Octavia Butler. Whoa, like for real, whoa. I don't know what took me so long to read this book. I absolutely love Octavia Butler. That's a whole nother video, but like Octavia Butler, I have always said, I believe that Octavia Butler was way ahead of her time, because like the topics of, you know, being Black in America, the topics, and then, okay, the fact that she's like the first Black female sci-fi writer, and she's writing all this futuristic shit that's technically happening now, but she wrote this stuff back in the 70s. This book was published originally in 1979. It takes place in 1976, and it's still very mind-blowing. So anyway, well, I mean, I don't even know where to begin with this. So like I said, the story takes place in LA in 1976. Our main character is Dana. She's a Black woman living in LA. It's her 26th birthday, and her husband are moving into their like new home. You know, been married a couple years, they're moving into their new home, and everything is great. Everything is just going fine. They're putting books on the bookshelves and everything, because she's a writer and he's a writer too. So of course they have lots of books. I love that part. I'm like, yay. All of a sudden, she finds herself sucked back into time, because this book involves time travel, and she is catapulted to another time. So she goes from 1976, disco on the radio, bell bottoms, to 1815 Maryland, which is considered a southern state, in other words, a slavery state, and she's transported to another time. And basically when she's transported to this other time, the most inconvenient time for Black people in America, she finds herself in these situations where she is on a plantation, and she's transported because she's being called by someone who is in danger. What she doesn't know is that this person that she's called to, he's the plantation owner's son, but he's also one of her ancestors. She doesn't know that at the time though. She's still like reeling from, okay, what the fuck just happened? So throughout this book, she goes back and forth from 1976 to 1815, and then again in 1819, and then she's just called back complete. Like, I'm like, I would be terrified, okay? But anyway, every single time she's called back, it's because the character Rufus Whalen, the plantation owner's son, is in some type of danger, and it's like it's her destiny to save him. So whenever she goes back, what's interesting about this book is that whenever she goes back to slavery time, she kind of adjusts to that time, that place, that era. So it's like as soon as when she goes back to that time, they're like, you know, you talk funny, you look funny, you dress funny, but they kind of be like, well, hey, since you're here, go on in the kitchen and help. So I'm like, what the? Because, you know, sometimes she's there for an hour, sometimes she's there for days, weeks, months. So while she's there, she has to like blend in. And so first of all, this character is brave, very, very brave, and she is just, I mean, I can't even imagine. But what this book reminds me of, that movie Antebellum with what her name is? Jazz Monet, what her name is? The movie Antebellum, where the woman is just living her best life. She's in like the city, and all of a sudden she's on a plantation. I wonder if that movie was like inspired by this book, Kindred. Okay, but anyway, let me get back into it. So it's funny how at first, you know, the other slaves are mesmerized, because they're like, why do you talk like that? Why do you use such big words? Why do you talk like a white person? Why are you dressed like a man? You can't be talking like that. You know, like talking with your head up and not looking down at the ground in shame. So, you know, some of the other white people are like, she's a troublemaker, you know, she thinks too highly of herself. You surely need to do something with her. But what was interesting to me is whenever she traveled back in time, she thought that she was okay physically and mentally, but it was starting to affect her personality. It was affecting her will. You know, she started out this strong woman, but she found herself adjusting for survival, right? So I wanted to talk about some quotes from the book, like she saw some little kids playing in the yard at one time, and they were pretending that they were selling each other, and it disgusted her. Little kids pretending that they were slaves, and they were pretending that they were selling each other on the auction block. And she said how it's hard that the ease, us, and even the children, I never realized how easy people could be trained to accept slavery. Now what's crazy is that she was starting to change too. She was starting to watch her tone. She was starting to tiptoe, and you know what I'm saying? And because she had no idea when she was going to come back. So this to me was like a huge, I mean, I don't know. It sounds crazy, like time travel and all of that stuff. But when you really think about, out of all the times that she could travel back to, why that time? And it made me think about slavery's over. Okay, we get it, bird. Slavery's over. We're free physically, but has anything really changed? Because one day she's back in the on the plantation, and she's noticing that there's tension between her and the other slaves, and she could hear the way they're talking about her. You know, she thinks she's smart, she thinks she's special, you know, she's still just a nigga, you know, they just talking shit. And she found herself not fighting back, right? So it brings me to this next quote where she says, "Once I was inside, though, I wondered why I crept away like that. Why hadn't I fought back? Alice accusing me was ridiculous, and she knew it. But the field hands, they just didn't know me. Didn't know how loyal I might be to Rufus or Margaret. Didn't know what I might report. And if I told them, how likely would they be to believe me? But still, I went down the hall and toward the stairs slowly, wondering why I hadn't tried to defend myself, or at least tried. Was I getting so used to being submissive?" And that one, that rang in my head. Was I getting used to being submissive? She wasn't submissive before. She talked back before, but it was changing her. So anyways, even though the book is entertaining and it's filled with a whole bunch of stuff, because slavery stories come with all that stuff. I ain't even gonna get into that, okay? You know the stuff. But the fact that, like I said, for her to go from 1976 LA to slavery, there are some things that changed, but there's some things that still stayed the same. So I'm wondering, is that the theme? Was that the message that Octavia Butler was trying to get across to us? I don't know. But I'm glad I read this. I mean, it made me think. It really made me think. I think it's a very good read. Like I said, I think Octavia Butler was ahead of her time. And I just want to talk about the cover, how it says kin. Oh, I don't know if you can see, but it says like kin, and then dread. The dread at the end, there's like a space, like, in other words, not just kindred, but like dread. Because she didn't know how long she was going to keep going back and forth in time. When the fuck was this shit going to stop? Like, when can I get on with my life in 1976 where I'm free with my man? Like, so at some point, she was like, how do I stop this from happening? But anyway, I think it was 5 stars. Octavia Butler, she does it again. Hats off. And if you guys have read this, please share your thoughts with me. I want to know, like, what did you get out of this book? So yeah, just drop a comment. But anyway, I wish you good reading. Thank you for watching. Bye.